Family, sometimes it only takes one moment, one word, one video to completely shift the trajectory of your life. You didn't stumble here by accident, you were divinely led. And I believe what you're about to hear today is not just information, it's a revelation. Because when your perspective changes, your entire life changes. This is that one video, and it may be the turning point you've been praying for. Perspective is one of the most powerful forces shaping our lives, yet is often the least examined. It is the lens through which we interpret reality, the filter that colors our experiences, and the quiet director that shapes the story we tell ourselves about who we are and what is possible for us. Two people can walk through the same circumstance and come out with two completely different outcomes, not because of the event itself, but because of how they chose to see it. What one person interprets as rejection, another interprets as redirection. What one calls failure, another calls foundation. The difference is not the circumstance, it is the perspective. From the very beginning of life, we inherit perspectives from our families, cultures, and experiences. We learn how to look at ourselves, how to measure success, and how to define worthiness. Many of us carry perspectives that were never truly ours to begin with, but because they were repeated often enough, we accepted them as truth. If you were told as a child that you would never amount to much, that perspective could follow you for years, shaping the way you approach opportunities, relationships, and even your faith. If you were told that the world is full of lack and scarcity, you may approach every opportunity with fear, hoarding what you have rather than stepping into abundance. But what if the perspective you've been living with is the very thing holding you back from stepping into the life you were created for? Perspective determines how we see God, how we see ourselves, and how we see others. When our perspective is clouded by pain, disappointment, or past trauma, we begin to shrink what is possible. If you've ever looked at a mountain in front of you and thought, I can't climb that, it wasn't necessarily the mountain that was too big. It was your perspective that made it impossible. When we shift perspective, suddenly what seemed overwhelming becomes conquerable. The same mountain becomes an opportunity for growth, strength, and testimony. The mountain didn't move, but your perspective did. Think about this: in every storm, there are people who drown in fear and people who learn how to dance in the rain. The difference is perspective. One person sees the storm as the end, the other sees it as a cleansing, a preparation for something new to grow. Perspective gives us the power to transform adversity into advantage. When you shift how you see, you shift how you live. So many people are waiting for external circumstances to change before they change the way they think and live. But the truth is, external circumstances rarely transform until our perspective does. The Israelites walked in circles in the wilderness for 40 years, not because the land of promise was unavailable, but because their perspective kept them bound. They saw themselves as grasshoppers in comparison to the giants, and because of that perspective, they lived beneath their potential. What they believed about themselves became a self-fulfilling prophecy. How many of us today are still circling the same situations, repeating the same cycles, not because freedom isn't available, but because our perspective hasn't shifted? Perspective also defines how we interpret time. Some look at delays as denials, others see them as divine preparation. If you look at every waiting season as wasted time, you'll live frustrated, bitter, and impatient. But if you shift your perspective and see that waiting is God's classroom, suddenly your delay becomes sacred. You realize you're not being punished, you're being prepared. The waiting is not empty. It's equipping you with wisdom, resilience, and strength that will sustain you when the promise arrives. Perspective is not just about how we see challenges, but also about how we see blessings. Gratitude is a perspective. Contentment is a perspective. When we live with the lens of gratitude, even small things become big miracles. A sunrise is not just another day beginning. It is evidence that you've been given another chance. A meal is not just food on a plate. It is provision that someone else may be praying for. Gratitude shifts us from focusing on what we lack to celebrating what we have. And in that celebration, more is attracted to us. Scripture says, to the one who has, more will be given. That doesn't just mean material possession. It means perspective. If you recognize and value what you already have, your life expands. If you dismiss what you have as insignificant, even what you hold will feel empty. When perspective shifts, relationships transform. If you enter every relationship with the perspective that people are out to hurt you, you will sabotage genuine connections. But if you shift to the perspective that relationships are opportunities to learn, to grow, and to love, even broken connections become lessons rather than life sentences. How you see others will either build walls or build bridges. And sometimes the breakthrough you are waiting for is hidden in someone you dismissed because of the way you chose to see them. There are moments in life where perspective is the only thing separating peace from chaos. Imagine a person sitting in traffic. One perspective says, this is a waste of my time. I can't believe I'm stuck here. That perspective produces anger, stress, and impatience. Another perspective says, this is a moment to breathe, to think, to worship, to prepare for what's ahead. That perspective produces calm, creativity, even joy. The same situation, completely different outcomes. Life doesn't always give us control over what happens, but it always gives us control over how we see it. The enemy of your soul understands the power of perspective, which is why his greatest weapon is deception. He doesn't have to destroy your destiny. He only has to distort your perspective. If he can convince you that you are powerless, you will stop fighting. If he can convince you that you are forgotten, you will stop praying. If he can convince you that your mistake has disqualified you, you will stop walking in purpose. But when truth enters, perspective shifts. Suddenly, what was once a prison of lies becomes a platform for freedom. Perspective is also deeply connected to vision. Without the right perspective, vision becomes distorted. Imagine wearing glasses with the wrong prescription. You can still see, but everything is blurry. That's how many of us live when our perspective is shaped by fear, insecurity, or shame. We're moving, but we're stumbling. We're building, but we're not seeing clearly. When perspective is aligned with truth, clarity comes. You begin to see yourself as God sees you, fearfully and wonderfully made, chosen, called, equipped. And when you see yourself through that lens, you start living from a place of confidence instead of comparison. Changing perspective doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means interpreting reality through a higher truth. David didn't ignore the fact that Goliath was a giant, but his perspective was different. While everyone else saw an undefeatable warrior, David saw an opportunity for God to display his power. That perspective didn't change the size of Goliath, but it changed the size of David's courage, and that courage changed the outcome of the entire battle. Sometimes we pray for God to change situations, but often he is inviting us to change perspective. Because when perspective shifts, you don't just endure the storm, you rise above it. You don't just survive setbacks, you use them as setups. You don't just walk through fire, you come out refined. Perspective doesn't eliminate the process, but it transforms the purpose of the process. Breaking free from limiting beliefs is one of the most important journeys a person can take, because beliefs are the silent architects of our lives. They shape the way we think, the choices we make, and the boundaries we set for ourselves. Every decision is filtered through what we believe about ourselves, about others, and about the world. If those beliefs are empowering, they propel us forward. But if those beliefs are limiting, they become invisible chains that keep us stuck in places we were never meant to stay. A limiting belief doesn't have to be loud or obvious. Often it hides in the background, whispering things like, you're not good enough, you don't belong, or you will never change. Those whispers become the soundtrack of our lives, and without realizing it, we begin to live out of agreement with lies rather than with truth. Many limiting beliefs are not even beliefs we chose consciously. They are inherited from childhood, planted by the words of parents, teachers, or peers. A child who is told repeatedly that they are slow may carry the belief that intelligence is beyond their reach, even when they are gifted. A person who grew up hearing constant arguments about money may carry the belief that financial struggle is inevitable, no matter how hard they work. Sometimes limiting beliefs are born out of painful experiences. A failed relationship might create the belief that love is dangerous. A betrayal might create the belief that no one can be trusted. A missed opportunity might create the belief that success only happens for others. These beliefs then begin to operate like scripts, directing our actions and setting ceilings on what we believe is possible. The tragedy of limiting beliefs is not just that they keep us from our full potential, but that they feel so real. They feel like facts because they are often reinforced by experiences. If you believe you are unworthy of love, you may unconsciously sabotage relationships, which then proves your belief. If you believe you are destined for failure, you may not put forth your full effort, which leads to failure, reinforcing the belief. The cycle continues until you begin to confuse belief with truth. But beliefs are not truth, they are interpretations. And interpretations can be challenged, rewritten, and replaced. Breaking free begins with awareness. You cannot confront what you are unwilling to acknowledge. Many people live their entire lives without questioning the beliefs that guide them. They accept thoughts like, this is just who I am, or this is just the way life is, as unshakable realities. But the moment you begin to ask, why do I believe this? You crack open the door to freedom. Awareness is powerful because it exposes the lie. Once you can identify the limiting belief, you can trace it back to its origin. Maybe it came from someone else's fear, from a painful memory, or from a misinterpretation of failure. When you see that the belief had a beginning, you realize it doesn't have to be permanent. After awareness comes the decision to no longer agree with the lie. This is one of the hardest steps because limiting beliefs often feel safer than freedom. They create familiar boundaries. As long as you believe you're not capable, you don't have to risk failing. As long as you believe you're unworthy of love, you don't have to risk heartbreak. Limiting beliefs create a false sense of security by keeping you in a box, but that box is also a cage. To break free, you have to be willing to step out of the cage and into the unknown. This requires courage because freedom always feels unfamiliar at first. Replacing a limiting belief with truth is not a one-time event. It is a continual process. It requires rewriting the mental scripts that have been rehearsed for years. When the thought comes, I'm not good enough, you replace it with, I am equipped and capable. When the thought says, I will always struggle, you replace it with, I am learning and growing, and abundance is possible for me. At first, these new truths may feel unnatural, even uncomfortable. But just as lies became ingrained through repetition, truth becomes established through repetition. Every time you speak in live out of agreement with truth, you weaken the grip of the limiting belief. Breaking free from limiting beliefs also requires a shift in environment. Surrounding yourself with people who reinforce the old lies will keep you bound. But when you place yourself in communities of encouragement, truth, and growth, you create an atmosphere that nurtures new beliefs. Words are powerful, and the voices you allow around you can either keep you chained or help you fly. This is why so many breakthrough moments in life happen when people encounter a mentor, a coach, or a community that speaks life into them. One word of affirmation can begin to dismantle years of lies. Sometimes the deepest limiting beliefs are spiritual in nature. They are not just about ability or worth, but about identity. If you believe you are unloved by God, you will live distant from Him. If you believe your past has disqualified you, you will shrink back from purpose. If you believe your pain is permanent, you will stop believing for healing. These lies strike at the core of who you are and who you were created to be. But when you encounter truth, the foundation of your identity is rebuilt. You begin to see yourself not as a product of your failures, but as a masterpiece of divine intention. You begin to understand that your past is not a prison, but a platform. You begin to realize that your weakness is not disqualification, but the very place where strength is perfected. Breaking free is also about action. Beliefs shape behavior, and behavior reinforces beliefs. To break the cycle, you must take action that aligns with the new belief. If you believe you are capable, you must step into opportunities that test your capability. If you believe you are worthy of love, you must allow yourself to receive love. If you believe abundance is possible, you must begin making decisions that reflect abundance rather than scarcity. Action is where beliefs move from theory to reality. Each step of aligned action solidifies the truth and dismantles the lie. One of the most liberating revelations is that limiting beliefs do not have ultimate authority over your life. They are not immovable mountains. They are illusions that dissolve when confronted with truth. What once felt like a ceiling is often just a shadow, but shadows only exist where there is light, which means the presence of a limiting belief is also the invitation to step into greater light. Every lie exposed creates space for greater freedom. Every belief challenge opens the door to a new level of living. When you begin to break free, you will notice resistance. Limiting beliefs do not surrender easily because they have been comfortable companions. Fear will rise, doubt will whisper, and circumstances may test your resolve. But resistance is not a sign to stop. It is confirmation that you are moving forward. The very fact that the belief is fighting to stay proves that its power is being threatened. The discomfort you feel is not failure. It is the breaking of chains. This process requires patience with yourself. You will not dismantle years of conditioning overnight. There will be moments when the old beliefs resurface, when fear feels louder than truth, when lies seem easier to agree with. But every time you choose to challenge the lie, you are building new strength. Freedom is not a single moment, but a continual unfolding. And with each step, you begin to live more fully, more authentically, more powerfully. At the heart of breaking free is the recognition that you were never created to live small. Limiting beliefs shrink your vision, your confidence, and your joy, but they cannot change the fact that you carry greatness within you. You were designed to create, to grow, to thrive, to impact. Lies may have convinced you otherwise, but the truth is still intact, waiting to be uncovered. The journey of breaking free is really the journey of rediscovering who you already are beneath the weight of what you were told. Walking boldly in purpose is one of the most courageous acts a person can commit to, because purpose demands that you live beyond comfort, beyond fear, and beyond the opinions of others. It is not simply about doing something you are good at. It is about aligning your life with the reason you were created. Every single person has a divine assignment, a unique imprint that no one else can replicate. Yet many live their entire lives never stepping fully into that assignment, not because purpose is hidden from them, but because boldness is absent. Boldness is the bridge between knowing your purpose and living it. Without boldness, dreams remain daydreams, visions remain untapped, and callings remain whispers in the background of life. To walk boldly in purpose requires first the recognition that purpose is not optional. It is not something you stumble upon if you are lucky. It is the very fabric of why you are here. The fact that you are alive is proof that you carry a purpose that is still waiting to be expressed. Too often, people disqualify themselves from walking in purpose because they compare themselves to others. They think purpose must look grand, public, or extraordinary. But purpose is not measured by scale. It is measured by obedience. A simple act done in alignment with divine intention can carry more eternal weight than the most visible achievement done outside of purpose. Boldness comes when you recognize that your life has meaning beyond what you see in the mirror, and that meaning is worth pursuing with everything you have. Boldness in purpose does not mean the absence of fear. It means the decision to move forward despite fear. Many wait for fear to disappear before they step out, but fear rarely vanishes on its own. Fear is an indicator that you are approaching territory where growth and impact exist. The presence of fear is not proof that you are unqualified. It is proof that you are stepping into significance. To walk boldly is to acknowledge the fear, but to refuse to be governed by it. It is choosing to listen to the voice of calling louder than the voice of insecurity. It is stepping into rooms where you feel unworthy and saying, I may not have everything, but I have been sent here. That kind of boldness shifts atmospheres because it is rooted not in arrogance, but in obedience. Purpose always requires leaving something behind. To walk boldly in it means you must let go of old identities, old habits, and sometimes even old environments that no longer align with where you are going. This can be painful because familiarity feels safe, but purpose is not cultivated in safety, it is cultivated in surrender. Abraham had to leave his home country before he could walk into the land of promise. Moses had to leave the wilderness before he could lead Israel to freedom. Jesus had to leave the comfort of heaven to walk among humanity. Purpose always calls you out of something so it can call you into something greater. Boldness is the willingness to say yes to that call even when you cannot see the full picture of where it will lead. Walking boldly also requires clarity. Clarity does not mean you know every detail, but it means you know your why. Purpose becomes blurred when you chase approval or comparison instead of conviction. If your reason for pursuing something is to impress people, your boldness will waver the moment people criticize. But if your reason is anchored in the conviction that you were created for this, then no rejection, no doubt, no opposition will stop you. Clarity anchors boldness because it reminds you that your purpose is not negotiable. It is not contingent on who supports you or who doubts you. It is not limited by your resources or circumstances. Purpose is sustained by conviction, and conviction fuels the kind of boldness that cannot be shaken. To walk boldly in purpose, you must be willing to fail publicly. Purpose will stretch you beyond what you know, which means mistakes are inevitable. But failure in purpose is never wasted. It becomes part of the process of refinement. Every setback teaches you something that equips you for the next step. Many people hold back from living boldly because they are afraid of embarrassment, of what others will think if they stumble. But the truth is, every person who has ever walked in great purpose has stumbled along the way. Boldness means embracing those stumbles as part of the journey, not as disqualifications. Boldness in purpose also requires resilience. Walking in purpose is not a straight line. It is filled with detours, delays, and disappointments. There will be seasons where you feel like nothing is working, where doors close, where prayers seem unanswered. In those seasons, boldness is not loud. It is quiet persistence. It is waking up each day and choosing to keep going even when results are invisible. It is refusing to quit because you understand that purpose is bigger than your temporary feelings. Resilience is boldness in motion, and it keeps you moving when everything in you wants to give up. Another key aspect of walking boldly is authenticity. Purpose is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming fully yourself. Too often, people water down their uniqueness to fit into molds, thinking that purpose must look like what is already accepted or popular. But purpose is expressed most powerfully when you embrace your individuality. Boldness means standing firm in who you are, even when others do not understand it. It means showing up with your full voice, your full perspective, your full creativity, without apology. When you dilute yourself to be palatable, You shrink the impact of your purpose, but when you live authentically, you give permission for others to do the same. Walking boldly in purpose also demands a redefinition of success. In the world's terms, success is measured by numbers, recognition, and wealth, but in purpose, success is measured by faithfulness. Did you do what you were called to do? Did you show up with excellence even when no one was watching? Did you plant seeds that may not bloom in your lifetime but will bless generations after you? Boldness means choosing to measure your life by obedience rather than applause. It means you keep going even if no one else notices because you know heaven notices. Boldness also requires stewardship. Purpose is not just about having a calling, it is about cultivating it. If you are called to speak, you must prepare your voice. If you are called to lead, you must cultivate wisdom and humility. If you are called to create, you must sharpen your skills. Boldness is not recklessness, it is disciplined courage. It recognizes that purpose deserves preparation. Too many people shrink from their calling because they feel unprepared, but preparation is part of boldness. Each step of growth, each investment in learning, each act of discipline is a declaration that you take your purpose seriously. Walking boldly in purpose requires vision beyond yourself. Purpose is never just about you. It is about the lives that will be touched through you. Boldness comes when you understand that your obedience can be the answer to someone else's prayer. Your book may free someone from despair. Your business may provide opportunities for families. Your song may heal a broken heart. Your leadership may shift an entire generation. When you see that your purpose is not selfish but service, boldness becomes non-negotiable. You begin to realize that withholding your gift is not humility, it is disobedience. Boldness is the willingness to release what you have because you trust it will meet a need beyond your own. To walk boldly in purpose, you must also embrace process. Purpose is revealed in layers, not all at once. At times, you may feel like you are only seeing one step ahead, but that step is enough. Boldness means moving with what you know, even if you do not know everything. It means trusting that as you walk, more will be revealed. Many people wait for a full blueprint before they move, but purpose rarely works that way. Boldness is walking with the lantern of faith, trusting that each step will illuminate the next. Ultimately, walking boldly in purpose is about alignment. It is about aligning your heart, your actions, and your vision with the assignment placed on your life. It means making choices that reflect destiny rather than comfort. It means saying yes when yes is costly. It means saying no when no is unpopular. It means living with the awareness that your life is not random but intentional. Boldness is the fuel that allows you to live with that awareness, to step into opportunities with confidence, to face challenges with resilience, and to keep going with conviction.